to be a Christian in a pagan world or a secular world is not an easy thing. And within this tension, Christians and the world, the gospel and secular mindset, emerged the need of following two directions or observing two aspects. One of them is to protect our identity as Christians, and the other, the need to preach the gospel to that world. This is actually the origin of the tension. So, we live in we are Christians, and we are motivated by the gospel, or our mind is set on the gospel, isn't it? Let's say evangelic, not evangelical, evangelic, gospel, evangelic mindset. So our mind is set on the gospel. Evangelion, evangelic. So it's not evangelical. Our mind is set on the gospel, and this is, let's say, our square, our immediate framework, the ecclesial framework. However, we don't live in an ivory tower. We live in the world, let's say secular world, or pagan. Is there any problem? Well, yes, because our square is just imaginary. There's no fence between the church and the world. Have you seen any fence? We move in the world moves into the church and stuff like that. There's a continuous movement between us and the world. There's no fence, that we are not actually protected. We just know we're different. Why? Because our entire universe is shaped by the values of the gospel. The problem is, we don't live in the ivory tower, we don't live outside the world, and perhaps remember what we've done so far from the letter to Diognetus. We live in the cities of the pagans, we eat their food, we speak their language, and so on and so forth. However, we're different. But in our regular interactions, daily interactions with secular people, pagans, we need on the one hand to preserve our identity, to remain what we are, that is Christians, and to think like Christ, and to behave like Christ. That's to be a Christian, isn't it? This is where we have put on Christ, not only for the day of baptism, to behave in a Christ-like manner. You know? And that means we should protect our identity, but however, we also need to preach the gospel to this world. And this is the origin of our problem, so to speak. This is the source of this tension. In the attempt of interacting with the world, we can see already with the apologists two different attitudes. I used here the word pseudomorphosis, is in singular, pseudomorphoses in plural, a term that was coined by Father George Florovsky. We have his entire works in the library. One of the promoters of the Neo-Patristic Manifesto in the early 20th century. So, we assist to these two different tendencies attitudes or pseudomorphoses, actually, because they do not reflect, they do not illustrate the spirit of our tradition. One of them is fundamentalism. What does that mean? Although etymologically fundamentalism comes from the word, foundation or fundamental, they are not attached to the foundation or the spirit of our tradition. They are attached to a form, morphic, where from pseudomorphosis, a form of our tradition.
Related to the letter?
Definitely. Yes, attachment to the letter. What are the main symptoms of fundamentalism? Is the claim of authenticity. We don't need the world because we want to preserve our identity, integrity, authenticity. They refuse the language of the world. They refuse to mix with pagans. They refuse to borrow the world's creations, so to speak. You know? But this is something hypocritical with them, because today's fundamentalists use a lot of internet resources and stuff like that. But doesn't matter. They claim they are preservers of our authentic faith. In doing so, claiming that they preserve our authentic faith, actually they reject the immediate cultural context. They live, in other words, in the past. They live in the past. This means they are attached to an obsolete form of tradition. The second pseudomorphosis is that of syncretism, which illustrates a different attitude. I would say it's detachment from the spirit of tradition. By contrast with the fundamentalists, the syncretists are not bothered with claiming authenticity or preserving our identity as Christians. They think we need to update Christian spirit. What they accomplish in reality is a secularization or paganization of Christianity. A secularization of the gospel. In the name of the gospel, they claim a lot of stuff. For instance, there's a lot of rich evangelical preachers that preach the gospel of prosperity. The gospel of prosperity. That is a unique message of the gospel addressed to the rich people.
So it's like taking verses out of context.
Definitely.
And making it work for you.
Definitely. But this is just an example among many, you know. Many of the syncretists are, one way or the other, affiliated to the New Age movement. All cultures are the same. There's everything good in everything. Well, we believe there's something good in everything, but not everything is good in everything. Something is good in everything. This is our belief. But not everything is good in everything. And they relativize everything and they put together gospel and Sufi mysticism and Buddhism and other stuff. You know?
There were thousands of denominations in Christianity.
That's actually the idea. Because the main claim is we represent the authentic version of Christianity, but in reality they are just syncretists because they apply to the gospel methods that are not traditional. And obviously, I told you this is a very important principle. Changing the method, you change the outcomes.